Alright, I'm starting off this Freddy Krueger face paint with my eyebrows already blocked out. I'm just taking a flesh-toned eyeliner and going around and drawing all of the sores that he has on his face. And I really like using this really creamy flesh-toned eyeliner because, like you saw right there, it's pretty easy to wipe away when I want to change things. And just go around and do that on the entire face, as well as my neck. And I'm looking at a reference photo of Robert Englund as Freddy to figure out where I want to put all of the wounds. Here I'm going in with some Snazaroo water activated face paints. This one is in Barely Beige. And this one is in Burgundy. And I just mix those together to get this pinky flesh tone color. And I am going to fill in between each of the wounds with this. And this doesn't have to be perfect since we're going to go in with lots of layers of color. This is just the main base layer. And for this, I am just using a round number 4 artist brush. All of my face painting brushes are just the cheap artist ones from the craft store. Now I'm just taking a larger flat brush and I ended up covering my entire neck. I didn't like the way the wounds were on the neck. And this face paint dries darker than when it gets put on, so I'm having to add more of just the beige color to lighten it up. Now I'm going in with the burgundy color on a round number 2 brush, and I'm going to be filling in all of the wounds. And for these kind of squiggly wounds, the way I get that to work fairly easily is I start with light pressure on the brush, then push down harder, and then lift up with light pressure again. And that's how you can get kind of the thin, thick, thin look on those wounds. Then once again, I'm just using a reference photo for all of this. I definitely recommend doing this. It makes it easier to get it more accurate. Now I'm just adding wounds to my neck. Now I'm going in and making my lips look a little bit thinner and then down turning the edge as well. Here I'm going back in with the pink and just going around the edges of all of the open wounds to get rid of any of the eyeliner that's still there and correct any of the shapes that I need to. Now I'm going in with just the beige on that same number 2 round brush. And I'm going around the outside of each of the wounds, adding a highlight. This makes the skin look a little bit raised around the wound. And this looks really bright here, but this beige, once it dried, almost disappeared, so I ended up having to add quite a few layers. But I ended up liking how that looked, even though I was a little bit frustrated at the beginning. It just gave the paint more depth and dimension once it was finished. As I'm going around the face paint, I'm also adding little kind of hash marks in between the wounds as well. This is just to add texture to the skin and make it look more wrinkled. Now I'm just adding some details to the eyes, just trying to add a little bit of interest there. And then adding some muscle striations in some of the bigger wounds. Now on the neck, I'm just doing the same thing, going around each of the wounds and adding those kind of hash type marks. And on the neck, they're all kind of going in one direction to almost look like the skin is twisted. And as you watch, you can see as the beige dries, it ends up lightening up quite a bit. And going in with a Black Moon Cosmetics Orb of Light Full Moon palette, I'm taking the shade Blood and Black, and I will be using those to shade the wounds. I'll be starting with Blood, which is the red color, on a large angled brush, and I'm just going to be going around and deepening up around the edges of the larger wounds and kind of the entirety of each of the smaller wounds. And I'm going in and darkening like my nasolabial folds, adding a few more wrinkles to the face. I'm going onto the neck, doing the same thing, and I'm actually going to be adding more depth to the wrinkles on the neck with this shade. Going in with a smaller angle brush, I'm going to be taking the black and going around the very, very edge of the wounds, especially in the corners, and just tapping that on and dragging it towards the center. And this is the best way to make a shadow. It makes the wounds look more inset into the face. And this has to be one of my favorite parts of a face paint because it really just makes the whole thing come to life. And on my neck, I'm doing the same thing, and then I will go in and put a little black on the wrinkles on the neck as well. Now I'm going in with the beige again, just adding another layer of that to lighten everything up a little bit. And I'm focusing mainly on like the little hash marks for this. Going over my eyebrows, making sure those are nice and covered. Now I'm going in with the Mayrom Paradise water activated paint in white, and I'm going to be adding little tiny highlights all the way around the face paint. And I'll be using a number 2 brush for this as well. And I'm really making sure that I twist the tip as I bring it off of the face paint so I can get a nice sharp tip to make the little tiny dash marks that I do around the outside of the wounds. And if it ends up being too white, like too fake looking white, I will go in and tap it out with my finger. And what this does is where we went through and did all of the shadows before in the wounds, this just adds a highlight so that it makes it look like the skin around the wounds is raised higher than where we did the shadowing. And you don't want to go all the way around each wound, you just want to pick a little bit of the perimeter of it and just do little tiny dash marks as you go. You don't want to do long lines. And doing the same on my neck. And then just adding a few highlights here and there on the skin. Right, here we go. Here is the finished face paint with my costume and everything. I hope you enjoyed this look. I hope you learned something today. Please follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I hope you have a wonderful, safe Halloween, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!